Good morning, everyone. My name is Chad Wilson, and I am the director of ENGI 2304. So even if I'm not your direct instructor for your class, you may have another instructor who is actually communicating with you, grading your papers, etc. I'm the one in charge of the class. So all the videos are completed by me. Now the point of today is to talk about Response Journal 1. Now, Response Journal 1, this is a new one. We changed it from previous semesters. So if you've taken the class before, this is not the same Response Journal 1, but the context is the same. The reason why we're changing Response Journal 1 is because ABET, the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology, has changed the accreditation outcomes. And what they say now is that every student who graduates from an accredited engineering program must have an ability to recognize ethical and professional responsibilities in engineering situations and make informed judgments. So they must recognize ethical and professional responsibilities within engineering situations and be able to make informed judgments about those ethical and professional responsibilities. And those informed judgments must consider the impact of engineering solutions in a global, economic, environmental, and societal contexts. So engineering decisions must take into account the impact of those engineering solutions, those engineering decisions, those informed judgments. They must take into account the impact in global, economic, environmental, and societal contexts. Now, why is ABET important? Well, like I said, this is the Accreditation Board. UH is an accredited engineering program, and that means that our graduates can then sit for their licenses. Without an accredited program, without having graduated from an accredited program, the students can't become professional engineers. They can work as engineers, possibly doing certain things, but they can't actually become the professional engineer title. Now, the Accreditation Board has all of these outcomes, and one of them is the ability to communicate in a variety of contexts. That is mostly what ENGI 2304 is concerned with. It is a class on technical communications, and we determined that the variety of situations that students should be able to communicate in is not only writing, but giving presentations or speaking, and then they must be able to write to technical audiences, but also to management and non-technical audiences. So the assignments that we do and the lessons that you have in this class are based on that ability to communicate. But we also do some of these other soft skills. So Response Journal 1 and 2 are based on ethics and the impact of engineering solutions in a global, economic, environmental, and societal context. So, Response Journal 1 specifically, it is an essay. Now, what does essay mean? Well, you're used to writing essays in English class, and I bet you never defined the term essay. You know why? Because it's not really definable. It doesn't really even mean anything. The term essay comes from the French essayer, which means to try or to attempt. So what are you writing when you write an essay? You're writing an attempt. And I think that points out that it's kind of an academic exercise. Even when it's not in an academic context, it's an exercise in trying to get ideas on paper, in trying to communicate, but not only trying to communicate, but trying to formulate your own ideas. And when I taught first year writing classes, I would often tell students that a person doesn't really know what they think until they're able to write it down. Because through that act of writing it down, a person formulates their idea. They're able to see the connections. They're able to make the logical connections. or the emotional connections. They can see where their ideas are coming from. So it's through writing essays that we develop this cognitive ability to make logical or informed decisions. So what I want you to do for response journal 1 is to write an essay. Now, an essay is built on a 3-tier case structure. An essay always has an introduction that leads into a thesis, and that thesis then guides the rest of the paper. So in English class, for example, maybe you were taking a class on argument. You would start off with an introduction that talks about how your Uncle Joe was incarcerated in 1984, and he was accused of murder. And you know, however, that Joe was innocent, and therefore your thesis is the death penalty is wrong because of the following reasons, or for the following reasons. And then the next 3 paragraphs, it's often 3 paragraphs arbitrarily. The next 3 paragraphs are those 3 reasons, and then the conclusion says, now that I've convinced you in 3 paragraphs that the death penalty is wrong, now go call your senators and congresspeople and get them to vote against the death penalty. Now, it's a strange, and you can see how it is an exercise. No one's going to convince anyone about the death penalty in 3 paragraphs. It's ridiculous. People write entire books on these subjects, and people are not convinced. So it's the idea of formulating thoughts. So what I want you to do here is use that same kind of 3-tier case structure where there's a thesis that's backed up with reasons, that's backed up by evidence. Okay, so all reasons are supported with evidence, and those reasons support the thesis. So it's a statement such as the death penalty is wrong for reason A, B, and C, and then reason A has a bunch of evidence that supports it. Sometimes you say proves, but it supports it. Reason B has evidence that supports it, and reason C has evidence that supports it. So it's called a 3-tier case structure: thesis, reasons, evidence. So it's a pyramid. The thesis is small, it starts with that, it's backed up by reasons, and has even more evidence that demonstrates the reasons. And all the reasons demonstrate the thesis. This way it's 3 tiers. So here, I want you to write a 500-word minimum, a 500-word essay describing a problem on the UH campus, or in the UH community, or in the city of Houston, a problem with potential solutions that you come up with. And then I want you to analyze those potential solutions, right? You need to be able to analyze the impact of engineering decisions in a global, economic, environmental, or societal context. Actually, it's not or, it's and societal contexts. So do you have to analyze it in a global context? No, you don't. But there's almost always going to be economic costs for any solution. There's cost to these things. They cost time, they cost money, they cost space. Costs can be not just money, it can also be land use. Cost is always based on a ratio, right? You get something for money. So it's money over something else. Or it's you use this much land for this much effect. Or you take this much space on the UH campus for this effect. So whatever it is, there's normally a ratio there. You get something for the costs. So it can be economic, it can be societal. Societal could be about how it affects the stakeholders or the people involved, the community, or how does it impact the campus or the staff or the faculty or dining services or whatever it is. And then, so economic, environmental, that's the second one, and societal. So environmental, you know what that means. what does it do for the environment? Adding a bunch of concrete is going to not only be about the creation of the concrete, the pouring of the concrete, the rock, the aggregate, all that stuff, the Portland cement, but then also about the flooding that it may cause, right? If you put a bunch of concrete all over the UH campus, is that going to increase flooding? Are we then going to have more drainage ditches around, or underground drainage pipes? So you've got to think about all these contexts. So I want you to identify some problem that you see in the College of Engineering, around the campus, and then identify solutions to that. Now, should these problems be academic? Probably not. They probably shouldn't be academic problems, like the problem is this class is too hard, therefore we should do X, Y, and Z. Now, you could do that, but then you're going to have to identify different kinds of solutions, right? The solution would be interventions, such as mandatory study sessions, mandatory workshops, or whatever you want to identify. You can do that. Or you can take actual infrastructural problems, such as one of the things that bugs me is people driving scooters around. Scooters can be a menace to pedestrians, different from bicycles. Now, what are the solutions to the scooter problem? Well, you could probably think of a few. First, you've got to really delineate the problems. The problem is that scooters take up very little space, and therefore they share with sidewalks where pedestrians are. But they go much faster than pedestrians. So you could institute speed rules. You could institute ticketing. You could build certain lanes for scooters, right? You could make it so that scooters cannot be carried inside buildings, or you could make it they can only be around the outskirts of campus. So there are different solutions, and for each solution you identify, I want you to then look at the global, possibly economic, environmental, and societal context surrounding that potential solution, which is basically an engineering decision or an engineering judgment. Okay, so thesis, identify a problem, lead into a thesis, and say there are X number of potential solutions, or you've identified X number of potential solutions, and then each paragraph should be about one of those solutions and how you analyze it. Now, could it just be one solution? Yes, but remember, you've got to write 500 words. So you need to make the decision about, you're going to change your scope based on how you to meet that 500 word requirement. Is one decision enough to write on? Yes, if you've got a lot of economic factors to consider, societal factors, environmental factors. Is 5 potential solutions too many? Probably, because you're not going to be able to say very much. So keep in mind the other guidelines for technical writing, which is if you bring it up, you've got to explain it, and it's better to say more about less. So I hope you enjoy writing Response Journal 1. Multiple paragraphs. If you only write one big paragraph, you're going to not do so well. So multiple paragraphs, 500 words, introduction that leads to a thesis, and then your solutions analyzed, and then a conclusion, which is probably going to be what you think the best solution is. All right, good luck.